Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're new to one of these meetings, I'm going to reiterate that these meetings are free and available to everyone. You don't have to be a member of the Susquehanna Group or of Sierra Club, but we do encourage that because it helps provide some funding, which helps us accomplish our mission to help people explore, enjoy, and protect the environment. So that's what we focus on. And anyway, first I want to give some announcements. We've got another wonderful edition of our group's newsletter called the Sierran. It is available at our website. If you search for Sierra Club Susquehanna Group, you'll get to our website. And there are tabs there. You can access the newsletters, the current newsletter, as well as past newsletters, as well as past meeting recordings. For the last couple of years, since they've been on Zoom due to the pandemic, almost all of them are available to look at in case you missed something, or maybe you want to review something that you had forgotten about and were interested in to check it over again. And this particular issue has two excellent write-ups about people that have really done a fantastic job to move away from the use of fossil fuels and to move towards electrifying their homes as well as their mode of transportation. So I encourage you to check out those stories. They provide excellent ideas of real-world experience. Also, I want to highlight an upcoming meeting, an event that is being hosted by Binghamton University. It's their Binghamton 2 Degrees project. They are hosting an in-person event next Wednesday, the 27th of September, and it features a question and answers session with actual scientists, including a climatologist that has done research in Antarctica. And there's going to be, my understanding is a presentation, probably a short presentation followed by question and answers. And then there's going to be a person that specializes in writing to help people perhaps write down their thoughts, to help sort out their emotions about climate change and what we're facing. So I encourage people to look into this. If you search for Binghamton, the number 2degrees.com/events, you should be able to find this. And they recommend that you sign up for it so that they know how many people are coming. It's at the Innovative Technologies Complex, which I think is on Murray Hill Road. And again, that's the 27th, Wednesday, and I believe it's at 6 o'clock. Yeah, 6 o'clock. It's in the Symposium Hall in the Innovative Technologies Complex. Our next Susquehanna Group meeting for October is going to be Tuesday, October 17th at 7 p.m. And this will feature a presentation by someone from the Climate Reality Project, reviewing incentives that are now available to help people improve the energy efficiency of their homes, as well as move towards renewable energy. And they probably are going to also talk about electric vehicles, chargers, getting the vehicles themselves. So we look forward to that. And I want to let you know that we are trying to get meeting space rented so that we can have in-person meetings again. We're hoping to do this coming month in October, and we're trying to do it in a hybrid way so that we will continue to give the opportunity for people to join us via Zoom as well, so that people that don't want to drive realize that we have members that are all the way out in Sullivan County, which is roughly 90 miles east of here. So in wintertime, almost nobody's going to want to drive to Binghamton to to join an in-person meeting, but perhaps they might join us via Zoom. So we're trying to get that to work out. We checked out 3 different potential meeting venues over the last couple of weeks, and we're still working on that. And then I also want to mention we are participating in an upcoming event that is Saturday, October 21st, starting at 9 a.m. That is the annual Broome County Riverbank Cleanup that's sponsored by the Environmental Management Council of Broome County, as well as Broome County's Planning Department. And if you go to the website gobroomcounty.com/EMC/Riverbank Cleanup, then you should be able to register for that. So those are the announcements that I wanted to highlight. Does anybody else have anything that you wanted to point out that I may have missed?
Oh, Valdi, I already registered for us, so there's no need to register again for the Riverbank.
Okay.
Cleanup. So it'll just be, I'll contact via our listserv to see who's interested, and people sign up through me.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Yeah, you did that last year too, and that worked out very well. So thank you for doing that, Scott.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's provides immediate satisfaction in terms of you see the efforts of your work immediately. When you pick up some junk that's by the side of the river and you haul it away, and then you see that, hey, now the riverbank looks nice. It looks like the natural state that it should be in. That's a wonderful thing. So that's many of the things we do, we don't get to see the immediate effect because we're trying to advocate or lobby for something to happen or educate people. And that's always less satisfactory immediately. But if something does happen that's positive, then later you see something. But when you pick up something and you're doing physical work, that's very rewarding because it's immediately apparent that you made a difference. So I want to encourage people that if you're able to, please think about doing that. And that helps beautify our area so that others can enjoy the scenery and the nature the way it's intended to be. All right, so to tonight's meeting, I'm going to thank Diane Cohen for giving us this presentation, which is going to be reviewing her experiences in being the Chief Executive Officer of the Finger Lakes ReUse Center, which is sort of like making our sponsored move out project a permanent thing, but community-wide, not focused on just what's happening with a college with students moving out. So this is something that would be nice if it could be set up in our area. Diane Cohen, again, is the Chief Executive Officer of Finger Lakes ReUse. It's a nonprofit 501c3 organization founded in 2007 in Ithaca, New York, to help Tompkins County transform waste into community value. Diane has been working professionally in material management since 2001, starting as the county-funded position of program manager for Historic Ithaca's architectural salvage program called Significant Elements. Now, the Finger Lakes ReUse Center is operating 2 community reuse centers among other programs. And Diane is working collaboratively with numerous multi-sector partners to design a more effective materials management system for reusable and repairable materials to remain circulating in the local economy. And Finger Lakes ReUse has received several honors, including the New York State Environmental Excellence Award, the Environmental Champion Award from the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection, the Recovery Friendly Employer of the Year from the Alcohol and Drug Council of Tompkins County, Nonprofit of the Year from the Chamber of Commerce, and Ithaca Times Best Achievement Award from The acronym is NISAR 3, but that stands for New York State Association for Reduction, Reuse, and Recycling. Okay, so, and I think I misspoke. I should have said the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is the first two awards. I said Department of Environmental Protection. That's a Pennsylvania agency. So anyway, it's the U.S. EPA. So again, thank you, Diane, and welcome to our group. And please go ahead, see if you can share your screen if you're giving us a presentation.
Great. Well, thank you, Valdi, and thanks to everyone for being here and for your attention. And I'm really happy to be here. Can everybody see this? It's coming
Yes.
up?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
yes, we can.
Wonderful. Okay, so oops, let's see, get it working. So I'm going to go over a few things. I have about an hour, right? And I'm going to try to not talk quite that long so that we can have some Q&A. Is that about right?
That's about right.
Okay, good. So I'm going to talk about why reuse, understanding that you guys mostly know why, but I want to give you even more, add more to the case when you're trying to talk to your decision makers about, and purse string holders. And this presentation is going to be freely available. I'll email it to Valdi, and maybe Scott, you were on the email chain. So if someone wants to refer to this, you're gonna have it as well. So I'm going to give a little background about our organization and how it developed, some of the strategies we've adopted as a result of some of the early work we did, the programs that we have, how the business has been performing, and then how to get started in your community, and something that we'd really love to help with. And so I'm going to give you my email right up front. I think the tradition is to give it in the last slide and then it gets turned off, but you know, feel free to contact me. We actually have some grant money to help other communities, and to over the next 18 months, we'll be developing a technical assistance program funded by the Appalachian Regional Commission. So I'll talk about that in a little bit, but just to relieve any anxiety that I'm flying through too much information, I have the information and you're going to have the slideshow, and then, you know, we can consider this the beginning of hopefully a longer conversation.
And Diane, sorry,
yes.
I should have mentioned this. We're also recording this, if you're okay with that.
Yes, and I should have mentioned, I think everybody has to accept that, but yes, so you've got the recording as well. And great, so we're happy to share what we've been learning. So Finger Lakes ReUse is an organization that was started because Tompkins County wanted to have a reuse center, and so the nonprofit was born as a partnership with Tompkins County. It's not officially affiliated with Tompkins County. It's they couched it as a public-private partnership where they helped us kind of get off the ground, and then are continuing to give us some support as we continue to grow at a much more rapid pace than we're able to handle very well, actually. But I'll talk about that as well. So we're a 501c3, which means we're designated by the IRS to be tax exempt. We do charge sales tax, so we're when we sell materials, but we don't have to pay property tax on things that we own, and income tax. Although as a nonprofit, we tend to invest any kind of surplus that we earn into continuing to grow and do more of our mission. So we were incorporated in New York State as a nonprofit in 2007. And when you are a nonprofit, you're required to have a mission statement, and then the IRS looks at are your activities fitting within your mission? Because if you're earning money outside your mission, then you're violating your tax exempt status, and you have to pay taxes on those things. So our mission is quite broad, but it's based on the triple bottom line, people, planet, profit, instead of the bottom line profit business model, but we wanted to indicate that we want to take a business approach to this issue. So our mission is to enhance community, economy, and environment through reuse. So that's where the people, planet, profit is built into our mission. And then we recognize that that's awfully vague. It's great as a nonprofit to have a mission that we can do a lot of activities without having to even get close to the outer edges of it. But we decided to create some clear goals as well, which aren't required, but they're clarifying for us. And so from the beginning, you know, our goals are to reduce waste, relieve poverty, and teach skills through reuse activities. So that poverty relief piece was at the time really revelatory when I heard about an organization that used to be called Recycle North in Vermont, and they had poverty relief in their mission statement. And I remember thinking, you can do that? You can be an environmental organization and do poverty relief? That didn't seem, you know, normal. And so anyway, we baked it into our goals, and we've been doing that as well ever since. And then many years later, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, our board had a retreat because they were kind of grappling with the waste reduction versus the social benefits piece. And I was really proud that what they came out with for the vision statement was of a just, resilient, and waste-free world that values both people and resources. So we're really an organization that's about the people. So why is reuse important and being increasingly recognized as such an important activity, which to my great delight, after being kind of patted on the head in a patronizing way for the first 15 years of doing what I was doing, saying, oh, that's so nice that you do that. Now people say that's important. So I assume everyone's heard of the linear economy versus the circular economy, but I'll review the basics here. And you know, the linear economy, exploiting natural resources, taking them, making them into things, consuming them, and wasting them, as opposed to the circular economy, which reuse has everything to do with, and every component of the circular economy. I used to have a slide, but no one ever laughed, that I had a square around the circular economy, and I said, reuse is the cornerstone of the circular economy, but people don't think that's funny, but I do. Anyway, so from design for reuse, selling the materials, how they're consumed, then collecting them again, and then, you know, sorting them to go back into use. Reuse is, and the activities that we do have everything to do with every step of that. And there's, you know, the justice piece, where, you know, even if we don't see it right in our communities, what we're helping to avoid, the extraction, the mining, the petroleum, the fossil fuels, the logging, the farming, and the water and energy resources that are extracted for the linear economy, and then the production and consumption. And a lot of these polluting activities happen in environmental justice communities. And so even the act of reuse in your community has these multiplying effects around the globe. And then the materials management sector, you know, you can either bury it or burn it, or you can keep it in use. So I don't know how many years ago, but probably pushing 10 now, I started thinking, we're so at the local level, but there's got to be some global thinkers out there, and so poking around, very happily discovered the United Nations was doing exactly that. And I think all but one of these goals has very clear associations, again, with reuse activities. So if you're not aware of the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a rich world of resources. You can go to their website and you can click on any one, and there's all this research and data. It's a really, really wonderful resource, and it's impacting people all around the world who are adopting these different goals. And then back to New York State. So I apologize. This is a long presentation, so I have a couple things out of order. I'm going to talk about solid waste management plans, but what I really wanted to highlight is that it was back in 1992 that recycling became mandatory. And the conference you were talking about, that I won a Lifetime Achievement Award from NYSAR 3, New York State Association for Reduce, Reuse, and Recycle. And everybody, all the professionals that attend every year, they call it the recycling conference because that's all they ever talked about. I've been going to it since 2001 or 2002. And every 3 or 4 years, it used to be that I presented. For the last 5 years, I've been presenting every year at it. And I think it was 2021 that they gave me this award, and they finally formed a reuse committee. But NISAR 3 has been, was formed as a result of this recycling policy that was developed. And so, could we model some reuse policy, some waste diversion and reuse and economic development? There's so many possibilities with that. We're not there yet, but there's a lot of conversation, and I'll tell you about some of the partners that are talking about it. So here are, on the right is the New York State Solid Waste Management Plan. And on the left is Tompkins County's Solid Waste Management Plan. And these plans aren't the law, but they are very important guides. And they kind of empower counties to direct how materials are managed in their county when they, put out their RFP for waste management or however materials are managed. And what's really exciting is that both of these that came out this year as drafts, and both of them had a public comment period, they both have circular economy in the title. So that's super encouraging. What's inside the plans is a little bit more business as usual. So we made a 22-page comment on the New York State's plan, which was, if you include the appendices, 588 pages. I think the plan itself was about 100. And then the county's plan was shorter, and we took pity on our poor beleaguered colleagues, and we only made a 6.5-page comment on that. But one of the things that was really great about the New York State plan was that in those appendices, which I've been reading since it came out in January, and they extended when the deadline of when they wanted the comments by. So I actually got into the appendices. There's all this fascinating information about how wasteful our waste system is. And I'm not going to go, that you guys have these stats, and I'm not going to go in great detail analyzing each of these, but basically it shows, how our waste is exported and how it's imported. And DEC Region 7, which Broome County is in, this is a map of stuff coming and stuff going. And then MSW, is that one C&D? No, MSW. That's C&D. So there's two categories of waste from the government's perspective. MSW is municipal solid waste, and then C&D is construction and demolition. And they're treated as separate. They aren't actually handled separately many of the times. They often find their way to the same end result. Basically, like I said, I'm not going to go into the detail, but just I guess I don't have the in-state, out-of-state exporting that was happening in these slides, but it
appeared earlier.
Oh, okay. All right, good. But anyway, like I think I heard that maybe I read it in the DEC's, New York State DEC, who published this solid waste plan draft, that I think 80% of the landfills and incinerators are privately operated. And the ownership and operation, but only 20% of our waste are actually operated by municipalities. So these private operators, they're like, oh yeah, we've got a place in Pennsylvania. It's cheaper for us to truck it down there, and then we'll just bill the municipality. Their incentive to be efficient is not really existent, is what I would say. And then this is the US EPA's chart of what's in our municipal solid waste, the MSW. And so in 2018, which is the last time there was pretty good data, 292 million tons, and it's divided up. Then the EPA also says that an additional 600 million tons in 2018 were disposed of. So now we're talking about 890 something tons of waste. And then I looked a little further and added up. I was trying to figure out how much, potentially reusable. And assessment of a potentially reusable, recyclable, repairable, refurbishable is that it's quite high. I remember Finger Lakes Zero Waste Coalition said it was more than 90% of what's going to the landfill could be reused, repurposed, refurbished, recycled. But then I added up these numbers, and this is a chart I've been looking at, and the EPA's had on its website. It adds up to 98.61, which I thought was pretty funny. So it's only off by about 4 million tons, and that's just the MSW, and they are already just estimating the 600 million. So they don't know how much waste there is. And then this is a Diane chart with no actual data attached to it. This is just what I think. So that's the disclaimer. But the perception is that you don't put as much money into the reusable and repairable because it's really just a small portion of the volume. But really, if you look at it in terms of value, it's the majority portion. If you're not just looking in terms of volume and tonnage, there's an enormous amount of value going to waste. Impossible to measure. I don't have data to do it. But what is that value? It's jobs, it's skills, it's repair, education, community engagement, energy savings, local economies, embodied carbon, plastics, stay in use, and greenhouse gas avoidance, and much more. There's just so much potential value to be extracted from this waste stream. And then, if we don't keep it out, it either gets burned or buried. And so I included the slide I know you guys know this, but it's a great website, and justzero.org was a resource I found recently, so I thought I'd add it for anyone who's trying to build a case. And then back in Tompkins County that wanted a reuse center in the first place, I was able to look at the last several years of their contracts, public information, and was able to kind of assess what was for waste. And meanwhile, this is what the county is paying directly to contractors to handle waste, which includes household hazardous waste. It includes running their transfer station. But in addition, the citizens we're buying tags, and we're paying for our pickup services. So there's, way more being paid into waste handling than just what's shown here. But this is what the county's contracting. Waste, recycling, food waste is about $500,000. So the dollars aren't on here, but the waste contracts were about $13 million over the last, I think, 5 years. And then recycling contracts were about $7 million. Food waste was about $500,000. And then reuse contracts, they're only spending 1.5% of their materials management budget on reuse. And my argument is there's a far greater benefit to the local economy. And so investment in reuse should be more. Am I biased? Yes, I will admit that I am. With the local solid waste management plan drafts, take a look. I put a website in here, and in our planning period from 2023 to 2032, one thing that wasn't even mentioned in our county's 10-year solid waste management plan is that the place that all of our waste is delivered to, Ontario County, their citizens voted to close that landfill in 2028. So in 5 years, the place Tompkins County is sending all its waste is in theory not going to be there, or not going to be available, or certainly a lot more expensive. And then there's Seneca Meadows is in the news too. So incineration is going to be another option, and that is far more toxic. There's lots of data about that. But so, we recommended, let's establish a system before that to capture more of this material. And a little bit more about these local solid waste management plans. There's a lot of information about planning units, and basically a planning unit is the equivalent of a county in upstate New York. So Broome County is a planning unit, Tompkins County is a planning unit, Chemung County, et cetera. And they're all different, but they are required to have a public comment period for a minimum of 45 days. They are required to have a public meeting. So just raising awareness that there could be an opportunity. And then I just went to their website to look. And so Broome County's going through 2029 right now. Let's see, I thought I saw one that was, Tioga County just submitted theirs. They're waiting for comments from the DEC. So anyway, that's it's something to keep an eye on if you're wanting to make change, and then ask for what is the current plan, and making sure we're holding our government officials accountable to make sure that they're staying within the plan. So a little more background about Finger Lakes ReUse. So when we were founded, I had been managing Historic Ithaca's architectural salvage program, Significant Elements. My position had been funded by Tompkins County because they had a growing fund balance, because at the time they had switched over to doing recycling and the commodities market was really good. And so they had $1 million fund balance and they wanted to invest it in progressive materials management. And so they had plan a reuse center in their plan. And then Historic Ithaca said, hey, we could use help. We're handling building materials. And so they got a grant. It had been a volunteer run program. I was a bartender and heard about at a happy hour that this job was out there, and I applied, and the guy told me that the deadline had been on Friday when I delivered it on Monday morning, but I happened to know that the executive director was in a bar trying to get my friend to apply after 5 o'clock on Friday. So I persisted and called every day, and I ended up getting this job managing this architectural salvage program. And that helped me build the relationship with the director of our solid waste management division, Barb Ekstrom, who just retired this year. So she and I worked together for 22 and a half years. And she asked me while I was still managing Significant Elements if I wanted to. About 5 years in, I was saying, I'm seeing way more than my program can handle. We only do architectural salvage. I'm already kind of bending the rules by taking an aluminum storm door, which isn't architecturally significant, et cetera. And plus I'm seeing lake houses that are slated to be demolished that I've been invited to salvage, but the cabinets are still filled with dishes and linens and, just more than what my program could handle. And that's been kind of my song ever since, because the more we do, the more we discover there's more to do. But I was also concerned if I was leaving Historic Ithaca to start something that would be perceived as a competition with Historic Ithaca's program. I just found that it was on my mind all the time until I saw a biologist named Janine Benyus talk about competition versus collaboration. And she said something very simple, which really deeply resonated. She said, we are kind of conditioned as Americans that, competition prevails in nature, survival of the fittest. And she rattled off all of these cliches that I was like, yep, check. And she said, when in fact, collaborative systems are far more long-lived, far more healthy, far more rich. And so I just started trying to think collaboratively, which wasn't easy because we're conditioned. We're afraid of competition. It's very fear-based mindset to be in. But so I started really opening, and collaborations are messy. They're slower. They're more complicated. There's human dynamics. There's egos. There's all sorts of things. But we took a collaborative approach, and I think that is one of the reasons the foundation of our organization. I think it's why we've survived so many challenges. So key partners, Tompkins County, they invited some other people to the table. We had Cornell Cooperative Extension, Historic Ithaca, Cornell University, Ithaca College. And together we went into this 2.5-year planning process where Barb really said, I need benchmarking. She said, you need to find out and make a paper about what's going on around the country, how big, how many employees, how many volunteers, how many square feet. And we ended up with what we called a pre-business plan summary, and that really informed our strategies moving forward. So I also linked to that. That's on our website, so you can take a look at that. And we even have the survey instruments that we use. So for startup, that was really great because it was a great way to ask questions of potential stakeholders instead of saying, hey, we've got this all figured out. Do you want to join us? Instead, you're saying, would you like to be engaged and help, give us some information so we can put our plan together? I think that was another really key piece. So I mentioned Dr. Janine Benyus, she talks about biomimicry. She's the biologist who talked about collaboration versus competition. And through our surveys, when we were asking, we divided our stakeholders into two groups. We called them consumers of reusable materials and generators of reusable materials. And it's everybody. But we had, businesses and large businesses and, large big box retail. We had the manufacturing industry, what little there is in Tompkins County. And then we had college students. And we just did all these surveys and we asked, what would motivate you to reuse, to donate? What would motivate you to purchase? And convenience was the loud takeaway. If I'm going to donate this stuff to reuse it, you have to make it easy on me. And it's just like having the recycling bin next to the trash can. So the system has to be easy. And the affordability, keep the prices low. So that really helped us position pretty clearly. And then I learned that there's a very small community of, and I was particularly in the building materials reuse world, especially when I was at Significant Elements. So I went to these national conferences that had about 100 people at them, and I'm still friends with many of them to this day. But they said, having a visible outlet for this stuff really helps. It pays for all of the marketing budget, times 10, if you have a visible place where people just see it, because getting the word out, especially in this day and age, is very, very difficult. So we incorporated in 2007, and then we opened our first place in 2008 in a strip mall. And then I was still bringing my building materials I had really wanted to do deconstruction, the whole disassembly of buildings by hand. But Historic Ithaca, the agency I had worked with before, wasn't as enthusiastic about it. They are now, but back then they weren't. They wanted to keep buildings standing. That was their building preservation organization. So they really didn't want to put a lot of resources into what I thought could be a really great thing. So with Finger Lakes Reuse, we prioritized that. And the same agency, the Appalachian Regional Commission, that just gave us our second grant from them, gave us our very first one back in 2009 to get our deconstruction services going. They helped us buy a tool trailer, all the tools. They sent our deconstruction crew down to North Carolina, where I had friends who were running a habitat restore, and they were deconstructing a house a week. And so we sent staff down there to train. Then in 2010, we got into computer refurbishing, and that was also a little bit organic, less planned. It was because there was a group of volunteers who had been refurbishing computers as a fundraiser for a different nonprofit organization, and they lost their space, and they kind of lost their relationship. I think it was a personality thing. I wasn't really involved, but with the organization they were doing this fundraiser for, so they had to put all their stuff in storage. And for a year and a half, they looked for a place and could not find another free place to operate. And so they ended up giving us all of their stuff. And there was an empty storefront right next door to the one we were in the strip mall that had been maybe 40% empty when we first moved in. And now it's almost all full. And I was looking at the space next to us and eyeing it and saying, we're going to need that. So it was great to be able to use this expansion. We got some grant money. We were able to move into that. And when we opened the doors to the eCenter computer refurbishing program, it was a tidal wave of material coming at us. And it started giving me nightmares. And we had enough grant money for one employee, handful of volunteers, gamely refurbishing computers and testing components. But the wave of e-waste that came at us was astounding. And then repair cafes started up, Amsterdam, and then Seattle and New York City. And so by the time the fifth person emailed me the New York Times article about it, said, so we did what we did when we were getting started. We put out a public service announcement and said, a press release, and said, anyone who's interested, come on and join us. I think we had 14 people at our first one, and some with skills, some who wanted to get things repaired. That's been going every single Saturday ever since, except for when COVID disrupted it, and it took us about 18 months to get it back up and running. Every Saturday afternoon, run by a retired nurse who is extremely handy, and then this cast of characters, retired Cornell engineers, neurodivergent people. There's this one woman who I went for the first year every Saturday just to see how it was going and see how I could be helpful. And she would inevitably say, "Oh, if only we had a thimble." She said, "I have one in my pocket." She always had the thing in her pocket. It was hilarious. And then, so anyway, meanwhile, the one beleaguered employee trying to manage all the computers, we started working with Ithaca College, and we had a professor who had several, I think 4 or 5 semesters worth of student work where they built on the work of the students before, and they helped us design our job training program. So we got that going in 2013, mutual benefit program. You learn skills, you help us with our mission, and we have like a tiered, the first 10 weeks are free, 20 hours a week. You're volunteering to learn with us and to help us. And we do that in a cohort. And then at the end of that 10 weeks, you could apply for a full-time paid apprenticeship. That's another 15 weeks. So there's a little carrot at the end. And if you're showing up, you can apply. And we had no problem getting grant money for that, because we would say, well, 50% of the apprenticeship will be covered by the revenues because they're helping refurbish computers. They're helping handling this material. So we've been running that Reset program ever since. We did 14 rounds of that Reset Tech program. COVID disrupted it, and we have not gotten that back up and running. The way our internal resources have been very stretched. It's something that we're hoping to get back up and running. But we do have a Reset retail and customer service program. We started it so that we could meet reentry people when the day they are ready to get back into the workforce, or someone who's been struggling with substance use disorder. We wanted something that wasn't a cohort, but was just flexible and ready for that day, and has like a series of steps you work through, but you can work through it at your pace, paid from day one. And I think we have 10 participants in that right now. And I think we're about to get more funding so we can increase that, because we've had a waiting list for that program all year. Then we found another building, and we were bursting at the seams in the 2 storefronts we had up at the Trip Hammer Marketplace. So 5 miles away, we purchased so the first 2 places were about 13,000 square feet combined. And then the Ithaca ReUse Center was 17,000 square feet. And I remember confidently telling the board, there's definitely enough stuff in this community, and thinking a little thought, I think there's enough stuff in this community, but it turns out there's way more than what both of those storefronts can handle. And we've been drowning in it, especially since about 2019. Then we started a Remap as a formal materials giveaway program, where last year we gave away $110,000 worth of inventory. We have about 60 nonprofit agency partners. The client doesn't fill out any paperwork. It's totally trust-based. They're, the advocacy center's client, and they work with people who are victims of sexual assault. And so if they'll have a woman with children that they find an apartment for, but it has nothing in it. It's not furnished. It's got nothing. And so we can set up a $350 gift card, and it's ready the next day at both locations. The person can go in, and we don't tell them what they can buy. They can buy a clock radio or VCR, clothes, dishes, furniture. They can buy a DVD player and DVDs for their kids, toys, so there's like like a dignity attached to it. It's just a store credit like anybody else would have. And then we had to pause our deconstruction services because the people started bringing us so much stuff. So I'll do a little bit more. I just also want to talk about this crowd alliance. So about 4 years, 2020, this group came. There's Cornell professors. There's the Christopherson Center for Community Planning. They are working on all this policy development. They are powerful. They have a statewide meeting every month. It's on Monday mornings at 9. If you're interested, send me that in the email, and I will introduce you to Gretchen Worth, who helps coordinate that. But they are doing some amazing stuff, and it's been so exciting for me because I've been kind of a lone voice for a long time. They think deconstruction is a solution. They think building materials reuse. And we've got preservationists, we've got researchers, doctoral candidates, renowned architecture professors. It's very exciting. And so they're doing all sorts of work, and I see how much time I have, so I'm going to go a little more quickly here. But CROWD is amazing. The acronym is Circularity, Reuse, and Zero Waste Development. And by partnering with them, that collaboration has been powerful. We worked on a 13-house project 2 winters ago, and I was able to use my relationships with the developer and our insurance policy, and they helped get volunteers, and we fully deconstructed a building with paid people only, and then we pulled up thousands of square feet of oak flooring and chestnut, 7-inch chestnut, clear chestnut baseboard from thousands of feet of chestnut baseboard from these houses. And one of the things they've done, if you go to the CROWD website, and it's cr0wd.org, they have all these resources for government guides. So they're starting to provide that state level assistance, like technical assistance that the decision makers need to back up their policies. So very optimistic that they've got some powerful things happening, as opposed to my scrappy approach. And I don't have any bandwidth because we're running our organization is taking everything I've got. The picture on the right is the salvage material, some of the salvage material we got from those 13 houses. It's certainly not all of it, but that is just one photo of it. The other thing is about reuse. It's a very engaging activity. So we've got all these shoppers who really maybe don't believe in the climate crisis, but they're buying affordable material. They're participating in it, right? They're coming through the door through what feels like a normal capitalist transaction, and they're buying things affordably. And so we're engaging people in this program quite actively. We're also demonstrating that there's all this talk about workforce development, not being able to get the workers to do the work. We don't have any problem when we post a position. We have waiting lists. We have, right now we have many people. We have a technology manager position posted, someone who I'm hoping will help us maybe get this Reset Tech program back up and running. But they also have to do all of our internal IT. So be a special person to be able to do that wide range of things, needs that we have. But anyway, we are not just workforce development, we are workforce engagement, and we could be a platform activity into the green energy market. And so working with, maybe some of you know Adam Flint, but working with him on maybe a large grant proposal to see reuse as a platform entry into creating a green energy workforce. So I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures. Because the people are such an important part of what we're doing. And so, someone have a question? Okay. Just kind of notice that people are engaged when they're doing work. So that engagement thing is something that I think people really crave in this world, that sense of connection, purpose. And so, the people have been what's carried me through what has been a very difficult couple of years. 2020, the COVID crisis, which was, kind of surreal on a number of levels, was kind of a normal level of crisis for us. We dealt with things. We wanted to keep people safe. But the next 2 years and the amount of growth and the amount of material has been much more difficult for us. And we just haven't had the administrative capacity, the operational capacity to deal with the volumes that are now coming at us. But I don't mean to be complaining. This is the Fixers Collective. Right before COVID, we did 2 Kids Fix events. And I love these pictures of the engagement and the sharing of skills between generations. Like, let's do more of that, right? Yeah. And then we did creative reuse workshops as well before COVID. We have not gotten back to that yet, but then at the end of the day, you have to be creative to use the stuff that maybe doesn't have an apparent, an obvious reuse, but supplies for art classes and teachers and artists, and there's just endless stuff. So, and then what's in our inventory? So here's some shots of in our stores. Refurbished computers. We're a licensed Microsoft refurbisher.
Whoa, look at all the current machines.
And great participation from the colleges. The students love to come in groups and help us out.
Records.
We call this product testing. There's a couple of volunteers who are also local philanthropers and philanthropers. and really wonderful people, but they were volunteering in 2020. We had some evening volunteer events, and really grateful to have the help. So this is a picture on the left. These are our two first storefronts. On the left was the our first reuse center, and then on the right was what was our e-center, but then we've rearranged everything, and you can see the original storefront. So around the corner, we then in 2020 rented another 17,000 square feet. So we had the 13,000 and then another 17. So we did another expansion at this mall. So that's now 30,000 square feet that we have at the mall, plus 17,000 downtown. So that's what we're operating with right now. I just had a meeting with the young man on the left today. He started when he was in high school. He's absolutely amazing and intelligent. And it was very moving meeting for both of us, just to check in and see how he's doing, because he's been working in our donations intake, which has been a mad scene for the last 2 years. The public is bringing us so much stuff. It's driving our growth, but it's also really, really challenging to manage.
Said there's a whole wall of stuff.
But we do all sorts of things, like things come with batteries, like we can help more effectively recycle things and sort things. I know I'm running on time. So this is an article called "Waste Isn't Inevitable," and it's really great. And one of the things that I deeply believe in, which I think, reuse, I'm mad at the reduce, reuse, recycle triangle chasing arrows, because just like the recycling conference, reuse is the overlooked middle child. Do I have middle child syndrome? Maybe I do. But reuse, all the money went to recycling, and they just skipped over reuse and all the benefits for it. And so I think attaching reuse as a waste reduction methodology, a prime waste reduction methodology, is what I would like to see this shifted into. We can stop waste before it starts, but we need to set up the right size catchment system, sorting system, workforce engagement, workforce development. You need large facilities. And so that's a vision that we put into the New York State Solid Waste Management Plan and into our local solid waste management plan. And I believe that once we design a pilot, and I've got a meeting next week with some Cornell systems engineering students who want to help visualize. They want to take the ideas that I have and help make it into a professional vision that could really help sell some people. I think the New York State DEC, Empire State Development, which is Economic Development Agency, would like to invest in this if we can show them what it looks like, and we have a business plan to show how, what the path is. So great article, but at the end, it was really about packaging. And I was like, well, geez, reuse is way more than packaging. There are so many other materials that are in high demand that are not being served. Aunt Sally passes away and the kids fly in from California. They don't want any of that stuff, so they order a dumpster. And it's not a great system, and it shouldn't be happening that way. So next week I'm going to a solid waste management conference in Lake Placid to talk to the waste industry. It's the New York State Association of Solid Waste Managers. So I'm going to go talk to them and say, is there an opportunity? Do you see a way that we could collaborate? They have a workforce problem too. We have a different brand, but we could help them if they wanted to help us. And guess what? They're quite wealthy. They're making a lot of money doing this waste business. But I remain encouraged, even though the work has been really hard, seeing this kind of main publication. I mean, reuse waste is in the news. The solutions aren't, but the problem is, and that it was invisible 10 years ago, but it isn't anymore. But this is, this was what was this, December 2021? People were ordering everything online, right? There were supply chain disruption, et cetera. This is a problem. I mean, consumption is continuing to be way too high, but we need these catchment systems so we can keep things circulating. A few more pictures. So donations coming in, I was saying how difficult it is. These look like nice and manageable, I have lots of pictures of it looking not nice and manageable, but I didn't have time to find them and put them in here. But here's a couple of ideas, like the volume of clothing that we're getting. And this was 2021. Yeah, this was a temporary warehouse that we rented, and all of a sudden it just became out of control, all clothing. And that was the year we started selling tractor trailer loads out of state markets. So, and we had to hand load bags of clothing. It's like tossing medicine balls, 8 of us for about 2.5 hours to fill up a tractor trailer, which showed up smelling like garbage, ironically. And it was like gagging, and we had to roll the stuff all the way to the back. Tractor trailers are huge when you're a human trying to work in them. So we've been overwhelmed by volumes, and we've done all sorts of methods to try to get them out there. So the students come back, and we have a tent sale. So this was last year. This year we didn't have as nice a sale. We had furniture in it because it was less labor intensive, and we were really spread thin on labor this year. But we can make it look nice, and we pushed lots of stuff out there. Thank goodness for volunteers, and we haven't lost our sense of humor. Like I said, product testing continues. This is my office door, and someone just showed up like this. It's just very funny. Like I said, we did our last. This was the last house we deconstructed for pay. Well, we got paid to do the College Town project, the 13 houses where we did the one as a demonstration in 2020. But this was, I think 2018 was the last house that we did. And we took it apart, and it sat in our parking lot unprocessed because our capacity started to get pulled apart a little bit, and the public was bringing us so much. We didn't have a place to absorb it and to put it on our shelves. And so we need larger capacity. So here's a picture of our board trying to figure it out. Really, really grateful for our board of directors.
3 years.
I already showed you that picture. Oh, here's another product testing. Someone donated a confessional, and this guy was our technology manager, and he was confessing to Louise, who was our first employee, that he asked for forgiveness because it was early March and he hadn't taken down his holiday decorations yet. It was very, very funny while that was up in our office for a little while. Then we made some dressing rooms, and this was a local artist who he was a professional painter, but he's also the muralist who did that big rising earth on the side of our building. He's a very talented guy. I remember him from my bartending days back when he used to drink. He hasn't had a drink in 30 years. But we asked him to paint this because we built these changing rooms out of doors. They were all different, tones, and he showed up and he said, "I want to do a mural for you pro bono." And then he said, "I was thinking about animals that change for our changing rooms," and just did this spectacular mural and just a unique part of the community. And it's why we call this model the Community Reuse Center model. It gives space for creativity. This young woman was, and her son, who comes in and organizes the toys, Walter, and Jamaica. She was my very first intern at Significant Elements back in 2002. She was getting her associate's degree at Tompkins County Community College. It's great to see her shopping in the store. And this was our last customer, and she's one of our top customers. This was the last customer when we had to shut down at COVID with 2 disabled dogs because her husband is a veterinarian, and she is just an amazing customer. What she has done with buying stuff from us. Oh, so then collaboration, we helped Cortland ReUse get up and off the ground, and they opened a couple of years ago, and they're already expanding into they're in the process of expanding into a bigger spot in Cortland. They're called Cortland ReUse, but they're not affiliated with us, but we shared anything we could, budget plans, job descriptions. We looked at facilities with them. But to raise awareness in 2020, they were offered this house by Cortland County, and Cortland County was in a fight with the town of Cortland, who had sent Cortland County a tax bill because Cortland County wanted this house down. And anyway, so we deconstructed it, and it was very solidly built. It was at the end of their small airport runway, and the owner didn't want to cut his trees down, so he finally made them buy the house, and then they cut the trees down, then the house was sitting, and then they got a bill, and they're like, "We need you to take it down." So again, we stepped in, we brought our insurance, our tool trailer. Cortland got the volunteers together, beautiful flooring. This is Kat McCarthy. Was going to be the director of Cortland ReUse, but then she got pregnant, and now she's working for Tompkins County, and she's our liaison. That's how I had originally met her. Anyway, but it was a lot of work. It was the summer of 2020 when we needed, we had a lot of extra energy to try to figure out how to save the world. But we took this whole place apart by hand with all volunteers, really very few truly skilled people. But look at all that value in there. Why crush this stuff? And then the J.M. Murray Center, which is an organization that works with people with disabilities, we're desperate for a safe place to have work. And so they showed up and they helped denail. And denailing is a big part of deconstruction, and they loved it. It was so great to have them there.
Yeah.
So our former board president, Lynn Leopold, she showed up a lot. And so, I mean, this is beautiful hardwood product and certainly reusable. Anyway, and then here's the Cortland ReUse people, and this is the first place. And on my right is Ivan Yolanji, who is the other first employee with the organization, emigrated from Moldova, and his daughter is about to have a baby, and she's due on the day that his only other child, his son, is getting married this week. And so he's taking this week off. Anyway, and at the same time of all that, Cortland was happening and we were getting overwhelmed by donations. Old Navy, all of a sudden we got a call that they're throwing all of their shelving in their dumpster. So then we went over and we stacked all this. We got all this shelving and it's now in our stores. I think we went through the awards that we got, so I'll skip through that. And then I just want to show you some business performance. So last year we did $2.4 million in sales. We received 45,000. That's just vehicle drop-offs. I can't tell you the many, many thousands of items that we accepted and priced. Oh, yes, I can. There it is, 750,000. We're actually sold through our cash registers. $110,000 in store credit through our remap program. 20% business growth for the last 10 years. And that's driven by the public bringing us more stuff. It's not part of our plan. It's not, we're just trying to accept it and get it on the shelves as quickly as we can because the public is buying it as quickly as we can get it on the shelves. 80 employees, 10 apprentices. This summer, we actually ended up having 32 youth workers. And we also collected and paid sales tax, which went to our local county and to New York State. So we're actually, generating a return that way. What are our big sellers? Household items, which is just a broad department. It includes bicycles and, a million different things. Building materials has a lot of potential because we don't really have the right facility to do building materials and we're not doing deconstruction actively right now. Clothing we're only selling in one location and otherwise it would be our largest department. A lot of value there. Computers and peripherals, we only have one employee and a handful of volunteers. So that's a smaller slice of the pie, but we'd like to reinvigorate that because there's a lot of opportunity there. We're doing books and media, meaning records and cassettes and DVDs. And we actually sell a lot of VHS tapes, do quite a trade in furniture and then home electronics. And then we had Cornell University students do an economic impact analysis because we're trying to convince our county to maybe invest a little more because it would really help us match the growth and the successful public engagement that we have. So this is linked to our website. This is a, 15-page paper, maybe it's 20 pages, on the economic impact of Finger Lakes reuse in Tompkins County. So there's some really great stuff in there. Over the last 5 years, almost $9 million in revenue, and that's continuing to go up. And then, we paid just to the county $346,000 in sales tax. And if you recall, over the last 5 years, they paid us $307,000 in grant money. So they're winning. We diverted 9.7 million pounds, and we recycled 2.8 million items. And that's just a slice from the economic development report. So that's another resource. Another thing to compare us, not that I'm bitter, but to compare us with recycling, the commodities market is collapsing. So this chart is commodities, and with residuals and without residuals means either that single stream where they're mixing it all together, or if without residuals is when they're actually taking it apart. But it's an aggregate weight of aggregate value of metal, cardboard, plastic, paper, glass. And so the high was $185,000, $184.63 a ton. And the low in the end of December 2023 was $70 a ton. We're selling stuff for $2,000. Actually, it's $2,500 to $3,500 a ton through our cash registers. Why not invest in more of that? And also the commodities market now, I was just on the phone with our solid waste people, is down to $29 a ton. It's really, the recycling is a real big economic problem right now. these are just our revenues. This is the gold line is grants and contracts and grants and government contracts and individual donations. And then the blue line is our business revenues. So you can see we opened our second location, which is highly visible, in December of 2015. So you can see what happened. And then this projection where we're flattening off in 2023, we got out of balance financially. Our expenses grew more rapidly than our revenue, and we were asking for help, asking the county, and instead we had to cut our staff, and that cut our production and it cut our sales. It's not the right direction. So we're in that active discussion right now. Think good thoughts. And then this is our problem illustrated. I'm sorry it's a messy table, but the top gold line is the number of average daily drop-off donations by year. So we've been averaging about 150 donation drop vehicles per year. I don't know how many items it is. It's very difficult for us to measure that. We don't really have the capacity. But the bottom two lines are, the blue line is number of employees and the green line is full-time equivalent. So because a few of them are part-time. So you can see that our paid labor is not keeping pace with the volume of materials. So to me, that's like very simple. And, in my opinion, our county, who wants to see this activity, whoops, that's my timer saying to stop talking. I think that there's a real case for more investment in this activity because we could do a lot more. And I will also say we just hired a new CFO about a month ago, and I think we are going to be charting a business path where right now we're about 75% self-supporting. I'm sorry I didn't put that table in there and showing you where all the revenues are by source, but 75% self-supporting, and I think that we could get even higher and balance that with the grants, the workforce development grants, that I think there's a lot of money out there for that, and that we're demonstrating that we're doing it successfully. So not too much more here. How do you get all this started? First thing is to listen, talk to people. Don't explain it, but listen to what they want, because actually people are really aligned across the political spectrum. People love reuse. They believe in it. It's something that's very unifying. We started by having public events. I'm willing to come talk. If you want to have a community event, I would be happy to come show an abbreviated version of this and talk about what we've been doing to try to get people engaged and excited. And what happens when you do that is you actually diversify and grow your own pool of energy, and you bring in new people. So when we did that, we got people from Cornell and people who became board members showed up because we did an open call. We didn't try to be exclusive. And then share whatever plan you put together, share it as a draft and share it to people who might be critical or people who are decision makers and say, I would love your feedback. We had, and it's broken now because it's 10 years old. We had a grant, but we can still, I think we're going to be able to help, because with this grant that we got, this new grant for this technical assistance program that we're building. But we used to have on our website, and I think it's broken, a whole business plan, like step-by-step, how to start your own nonprofit, how to take these strategic steps to engage the community. But really starting by listening and bringing people in and having an event and seeing what the interest is. That's something I really recommend. But then at the end, we had these series of questions you worked through and exercises. And at the end, you could push print, and it was formatted as a business plan, as a draft that you could then bring to people for feedback. That is broken right now, but we can help you build that. So this large system that we're pitching is this gigantic, what we're calling hubs, these huge warehouses that can really help, like in a sort of a manufacturing setting with partners like BOCES, doing appliance repair and refurbishing, retrofitting gas dryers and putting a heating element in there. There's a whole bunch of things that could use those equivalent skill sets that the workforce is badly needing. And we can practice it on reusable materials, refurbishable materials, repairable materials, get them ready to go back into the market and prepare a workforce for our green future. We can help look at materials and market prioritization. We're learning about wholesaling last year we sent 21 tractor trailer loads of material out into out-of-state markets. We would much rather keep stuff in local markets. We know we can get more on the dollar, support more jobs, but we also like building those overflow systems. And then that hub and exchange network, the exchanges, just to be clear, because I skipped over that, they are like any place where you could donate or purchase or acquire reusable materials. So it's reuse centers, thrift stores, antique stores, online platforms, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. That's an exchange. And so the hubs help collect this stuff and then they wholesale it out or make it available for all of these outlets. In Tompkins County, we have about 40 different businesses that are doing used materials. I'm sure there's quite a number of them in Broome County. There's no formal, nobody's looking at that, but let's make that more robust because the people want this stuff. That's the thing that we're demonstrating every day. We can look at facilities. We can help with funding applications, implementation plans. We can, and I listed the crowd partners on the right. So it's not just Finger Lakes Reuse that can help with this. So there's this group of people that have been meeting regularly for several years, not funded by anyone. Crowd is just because we think this needs to happen. And so, and they're just wonderful, committed people. So we're really excited because we can see that communities are really interested. We can come help with community engagement sessions like I was talking about. And then from a technical perspective for the community reuse center model, our point of sale system that we've developed and customized, financial management, market development, job descriptions, and more. Oh, and one other thing about the exchanges that I didn't talk about is startup enterprises, small businesses. You could have a bike shop. We have enough shoes just in our warehouse that we don't have the capacity to put on our shelves that could start a shoe store. We could feed just a shoe store. But we're not sure we want to do all of that. We would like to maybe just wholesale it out to someone who can focus on shoes and polish them up and organize them and size them and do all that stuff and really can actually charge a little more money for it because it's curated. So I think I'm getting to the end. Oh, so this is the Arnott Mall, but there's empty storefronts everywhere, right? So think about your empty spaces, and would that be, is it a sympathetic landlord? Is there something where we could actually, come take a look and see if we can make a plan? We've got enough inventory right now. We could seed a whole startup pretty quickly. And as my coworker Scarlett, who manages our most busy place, says, it's not rocket surgery, right? We can do this. It's just a little coordination. We're demonstrating that it's possible. And here are the many partners, a few of the many partners who have helped us make this possible. So thank you so much for your time and your attention today.
Overwhelming, isn't it?
Hmm.
Thank you very much. That was quite a comprehensive presentation. Amazing. And your offer of providing help and guidance is fantastic. And so one thing I have a question regarding what you said. You said, I think you meant the trucks smell like garbage. Is that what you meant?
The very first truck. Well, it wasn't the first. We had done one tractor trailer before that. But when I showed you that pile of bags of clothes, that huge pile, when we got really overwhelmed, when we reopened donations after COVID, after everybody was home making piles, they were like, got to do something with this clutter. So we got a tractor trailer and we had to hand load those bags, and that particular truck that showed up had moved some sort of garbage or something organic that was nasty. So it was like we were choking and like throwing these bags. At least they were in bags, but it was just yucky. But usually the trucks are pretty clean.
Do you have to wash the clothes before you put them up for sale, or?
We do not. But if they have an odor, we don't sell them. So most people bring us stuff that's clean. If they bring us stuff that's gross, We don't. And actually, we're about to get a grant from New York State to buy a baler, because if we can bale clothes that are stained or torn, there's actually markets for those. There's a rag market. There's something they call shoddy, which is the underlayment in your automobile, the insulation, that multi-fiber, or underlayment under carpets. So there is a market for fabric like that, but you have to bale it. You can't put it loose because they don't get enough tonnage in the truck.
Yeah.
So without a baler, we're throwing that stuff away, which is really a bummer because there's a market for it. So, but fortunately, we're about to get a grant. So by next year, I think we'll have a baler going.
Okay. Jim's got a question. Go ahead.
Actually, I have 4 questions and I don't want them to take a lot of time, just rapid fire, okay?
Okay.
Is there anything else comparable in New York State to your program?
We have colleagues in Brooklyn, New York. It's called Big ReUse. Really great guy. And they, like us, started in building materials and then kind of evolved. So they're doing clothes and books. Okay.
Yeah. Next, that house where you took out all the nice, well, it was more than one place where you got this chestnut. Do you have any idea what year those structures were built?
Historic Ithaca said they're about 100 years old, probably 105, 110 years old.
Very good. Wow, thank you. Third question. When you were gearing up to organize this entire effort, did you go up to the landfill in Ontario County and view it to see what was coming in?
I have not done that. Where we observed was at the transfer station in Tompkins County. So we actually,
I
had Kat, who was denailing. She had just graduated from college and was one of the people who helped us do some planning. And I said, stand by the transfer station with a clipboard and write down everything that's reusable. And we estimated it was about a half a ton an hour of reusable stuff that she could see was being thrown away. Perfect.
Yeah, good place to see. Last question. What is your relationship with Goodwill and the Salvation Army?
I have a meeting with Goodwill of the Finger Lakes next week. I'm friendly with the major captain. Oh gosh, I can't get the titles right.
Okay.
But I'm friendly with the one in Ithaca. The general consensus is there's plenty to go around.
Okay. There's no sense of competition or hurt feelings.
I think Goodwill is quite competitive, and I think they're quite concerned because there's a place called Savers Value Village that is a for-profit. It got in a little trouble for posing as a nonprofit, so now they have disclaimers all over their website. But they just did an IPO. They just went public and got a whole bunch of investment. They're going to be everywhere. So demonstrating that what we're doing is a little bit different, but there is an opportunity to actually make money doing this. And they have hundreds of stores throughout the country already.
And of course, the Salvation Army has some other program elements which are similar to yours in terms of job training and.
Yes, but none of them are waste reduction like us. They're all capitalizing on waste, but they're not. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of the pile. I want to get it all out of the land, out of that stream.
Yeah, it's a small stream compared to yours. Anyway, thank you very much. Very impressive.
Thanks for the great questions.
Scott?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I have my hand up. This is Scott, and I have a few questions. Do you know, Diane, the percentage of what gets collected is from the colleges versus from the community? Community.
In terms of collected by us?
Yeah, or donated.
No idea. I really don't. We certainly see a surge when the students are moving out, but it's probably relatively equivalent to the population because we have 100,000 people in the county, 30,000 students. It's probably 30%.
Okay.
It's my guess. Downsizing baby boomers are a major contributor year round.
Yes, then that was going to be part of my next question. They want to declutter, and so do you offer additional services to people like that? Like we'll help the decluttering?
We do not, but
Or-
there are quite a number of services that are, not even advertised. They're referral based. I know a lot of people who are bringing us stuff all the time as a service to people who, just want to pay for the help.
Okay, so you're tied into that then.
Mhm.
In that
Yeah.
way, all right.
Yep.
Okay, and oh boy, I thought I had one more question, but I'll just lower my hand and will come to me later.
Sure. And feel free to follow up anytime. This is what I eat for breakfast, right? So.
Hi, Diane. I had a question. First, it's good to see you again. I met you with Chris. I work with the Binghamton Move Out Project.
Oh, great.
And thank you so much for this amazing presentation. That was like enthralling to see like the whole thing from beginning to end. Like I had no idea all the stuff you guys did. Like this is amazing. My first question is, have you worked with the Endicott ReUse folks that are trying to get started up here?
Yes, so I haven't talked to them in many, many months. R3, that's what their
think
group is
so,
called,
yeah.
right? Yes, so I did, they actually used our business plan template and they got it going. They last we talked, they were looking at a church. I've lost touch with them, but would love to reconnect. And what I'm just trying to do, and that's what this Appalachian Regional Commission grant is, trying to help us be stable enough, because I spent a lot of my time just dealing with internal stuff. But anyway, I think the resources are starting to come to help other communities that don't have the resources to help themselves. So that's, Tompkins County is a wealthy county. They had this extra money lying around that they don't anymore. They don't have the $1 million fund balance. Their waste transfer station is losing tons of money. And they're shrinking while we're growing, which is also really interesting. But our timing was good and we're here and we're demonstrating something really important. And I think that there's other purse strings are going to open up to help surrounding communities and build out this network.
Awesome. I loved what you said about it's not like a competition, it's about sharing the knowledge. It's so much more powerful when you do that. So I love that. And then my second question is, I know you said, what about the forgotten like reuse part of it? Why is it focused on recycling? I just wanted to know like your personal standpoint, like what about reduction? Like I know like does it ever like make you feel overwhelmed or like frustrated that there is so much stuff to be donated?
Yes. So I guess I'm like pragmatic about it. I'm cynical and pragmatic. And then I read somewhere that executive directors are supposed to be optimists. So I've been channeling that part of myself because my default is to be cynical. But I think that I think a lot of people are reducing. I'm guessing people in this group are, have made lifestyle choices. There's a lot of people who, especially people who don't have a lot of means. When you're fighting for survival in your life or you're trying to raise your kids, like you can't think about whether you're going to put something in the recycling or the trash. Like you can't deal with it. You need convenience and you're just trying to live your life. So what I'm focused on is I believe reduction. This is such a huge issue that, the design of products has to change. Producer responsibility, they need to step up. I believe that they are not going to, and I think communities actually have the power. I think they have the authority to say, to add taxes and to say, if you're going to sell this crap, we're going to tax you for this crap. And so and then invest in a system that it's costing for us to collect it. I think that's all coming. And then educating people to reduce also, I think will happen to a certain degree. And meanwhile, there's always going to be, 20% of people or some percentage of people who are going to ignore all that. And I would actually like to see the mechanism of the dumpster evolve and have it be a container that's clean, that's checked regularly, that, next, and I'm picturing the housing complex I looked through, fairly new apartment complex in College Town, Cornell students, that was, filled at student move out with ridiculous value. There are these students are so incredibly wealthy. They're about to get on a plane. What they throw away, they fold clothes, put it in a brand new backpack and toss it in the dumpster. And, if they had something else to put it in,
Yeah.
Or we could sell them a service and say, hey, if you're not going to pick up your apartment, we'll come clean it out for you. Like, figure out what is that level of service just to help the person make the connection. And you have to start somewhere. And what we are demonstrating is that we started somewhere, and we're successfully collecting. The public's bringing us so much. We have 1,000 pallets of material in warehouses right now. We sent out about 1,100 pallets into other markets last year through these 25 tractor trailer loads. So that's why I'm saying we could send 30, 40 pallets plus of material to another community that finds a storefront. And when we started, we went to garage sales and bought stuff to give an illustration of the type of stuff that we were doing. And then people started donating, and we built it up from there. We could fully stock another community's shelves and get it going. And we're very interested in doing that. So if anyone out there wants to convince a landlord and a seed funder to get that going, please let me know.
Thank you.
A couple of other things. You mentioned that collection, making it easy, is super important. How does your collection work? Is it just at one of your sites or a couple of your sites where you have drop off, or do you also have collection bins, remotely that are labeled, so that people understand what they are? Or
we haven't. We've been there's you can park a tractor trailer and put a little staircase to it, and there's a St. Vincent de Paul out in Eugene, Oregon. Huge on the side of the tractor trailer. The trailer says attended donation station, and they pay someone to sit in the thing. And it's more mild weather in Oregon, but we could do something like that in the rural areas. I think probably there's some right now. What we're doing is both of our locations, which are about 5 miles apart, each accept donations every day. But Thursday, our staff rose up in 2021 and said, we can't take it. We need a day off. So which kind of disrupts our convenience strategy, and it annoys the people who forget that we're not accepting donations on Thursday. I did convince my staff, please, if it's a desperate donor, just take it. You're there, the store's open, just don't make them cry. Say, please, next time, try to remember that we're not open on Thursday. But we could do all sorts of other collection. We also have 4 trucks. And so we have a pickup service, and we have repeatedly been suspending that for the last 3 years because we're saturated, and because we're drowning in our own success at the moment. And that's going to change. This new CFO, he's amazing, and he's going to help us chart that plan for growth and give some other funders some confidence to invest and get us over this growth hump that we need help with right now.
My second question is kind of an overview strategic question. Is if you want to get something like this started, I know that we've got a small village, Endicott, trying to start one, but what I'm also thinking about is who actually has the landfill is our county. And to me, it seems like the county should be super interested in trying to reduce the volume and weight of material that they have to bury in the landfill and pick up in terms of and handle and process in terms of the recycling stream, which much of it isn't truly recycled anyway. So it seems to me that if you really want to make the biggest bang for the effort and for the buck, maybe it's better to start at the county level. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, so exactly. So the town of Geneva approached us, and they actually got Cornell students to do a plan for a reuse transfer station. They were calling it, well, that's sort of what they were calling it, but they have a transfer station, a drop-off station for the community, and then stuff goes to their Ontario County landfill. And I said exactly that to them. You need to work with your county, because the whole system is really dictated by the county. So I think encouraging your town people in Endicott to call for a meeting and maybe even get another township involved or interested. But I think I know Deb Smith. I think she's the Broome County landfill supervisor or solid waste supervisor or something. I think I know her. I might see her at this conference I'm about to go to. But yes, you definitely engage the county in the conversations, and I would be happy to come help if that's helpful.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? I have one other comment if nobody else has got something, but in the meantime, you can think of other follow-up questions. The other thing I'm surprised at is that we still have 2 municipal solid waste incinerators. As you mentioned, that is a source of a lot of toxic emissions, and nobody really understands what is being spewed out into the environment from the incineration of all kinds of plastics, and you know, there's metals that might get thrown in too.
Oh, they definitely do. They do. Yeah, it's a big problem, and I fear that as landfills are closing, it's going to be the necessary direction. I mean, Europe incinerates the bulk of their trash, but also it's made them pay more attention. They're better citizens around how they manage their waste. I'm not saying that their incinerators are cleaner. I don't think there's such a thing, but I worry that with how difficult it is to cite anything, and that landfills, I think, they're horrible. They're horrible pollutants in all sorts of ways, but they're less horrible than incinerators. And I think that we're going to see more, not less, and that's a new frontier to fight.
Yeah, so what you're doing is, like you said in one of your slides, it affects so many different things, and it helps prevent bad things, and it helps produce good things. And it reduces the energy use, it reduces the need for mining, the more production. I mean, it's just amazing. And you're right, the lack of focus on this historically is really a shame, but your model of what you have been doing is just astounding. So thank you for all of what you have done and for giving us this presentation. Does anybody else have any other follow-up questions or comments?
I just have a comment again. When I saw that picture of the bags of clothing, I just cringed. But we see something similar. The clothing is the biggest item that we collect, and a lot of this clothing should never have been bought. I mean, Christina touched on this. I mean, it's either out of style, or I mean, someone bought it and didn't even use it much. I mean, yeah, and it would be nice to nip that in the bud a little bit better. But
I don't know if this is, yeah, I don't know if it's a thing, but Australia, there's a what looked like some sort of like a fiber spectrometer. Like, it was a handheld device that would tell you if it's cotton, if it's polyester, or what type of like plastic fiber or whatever. So if I see these larger hubs as what I would call like sorting facilities to put like items together, like materials, because they could become feedstocks for all sorts of industry if you know what the chemical makeup is of that stuff. And so I think that I think there's an opportunity. I worry that it would become like an unhappy work farm type of environment if it's not managed correctly, right? So, but I think that it could be good work if it was set in the right setting. And even though the clothing, the item itself isn't usable as that thing, the material is still reusable without being chemically altered or recycled. It could be still used as something. And so that's this enterprise development, which I think is really an exciting thing.
Do you reuse appliances and major appliances like refrigerators and the air conditioners and clothes washers and dryers and things like that too? Or
we sell them. We're in this kind of trust-based thing. We finally got a 220 outlet put into one of our locations, but we haven't been using it to test. So refrigerators, we wait 24 hours for the, the fluids to settle. Then we plug it in. And if it gets, they actually have a handheld thermometer tester. If it gets to the right temperature, they'll sell it. The dishwashers, washing machines, stoves, we don't test any of that. We just trust. We ask the customer, and then we give a warranty, a 15-day warranty. But it kind of sucks if you bring the dishwasher and you hook it up and then it's not working. So it's a risk. So we have to sell them for very low prices. There is the same St. Vincent de Paul in Eugene, Oregon, that's been sharing technical assistance with us. They have an appliance repair program that we've looked at, but you need a lot of space for that. So we don't have the space to have, but I'm using that as an example, and not just the repairing and refurbishing, but that retrofitting, because that switch to gas, like, let's not scrap that dryer. Let's just put a different heating element in there, put an electric heating element, and, the spin, everything else of the dryer, the box, you don't need to melt it, and all the pollution that comes with recycling, which is never talked about, but certainly there.
The things that have refrigeration in them, that's more complicated because you have to have certification and tracking of Freon and filling it and all that stuff. So that's a more difficult thing to get to be able to do.
But it's not that difficult, and the certification is pretty basic, and you have to know which gas you're putting it in and collecting it. But that's something that this program is doing, and they just had two full-time people who were like the mentors and the main workers for the program. It was a Monday through Friday program. And then they would assign helpers, that could learn the skills along with them. So you gain how to responsibly handle refrigerant, because and all of those. And that's a marketable material as well when you collect it.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
I do have another quick question. I know you touched on some different ones, but do you know like how many reuse centers there are in New York State similar to yours?
There's really nothing similar to us. We're very unique. We're much larger even than the one in Brooklyn. But yeah, and I mean, it's crazy to think New York City doesn't. New York City has a number of thrift stores, but they have a terrible waste problem, and they're sending it upstate. And yeah, so there's Goodwills smattered around. There's Salvation Armies. There's the Habitat Restore that recently burned down near Corning, and but there's nothing like us. We're a very unique model.
Wow, sounds like there's a great opportunity there because it's amazing that New York City has just a small, small unit. Which this seems like. Why wouldn't they want to be involved in this?
Yeah, it's a tough one. The trend is going in the right direction. I would like it to go a little more quickly, but
in our lifetime.
Okay. If anybody else, I don't see anybody else looking for any questions or comments. So again, thank you, Diane, and I hope that we can get somebody in our area to get involved in this and volunteer and maybe at least make some contacts with people that are trying to start up activities already and try to get them to cooperate and get the county interested, because I would think that if the county can realize that they can benefit from this, maybe they can even provide some currently county paid employee to help work on this, to maybe together with some volunteers to get this going, because wow, there's a fantastic opportunity here. And I think it's just something that people don't realize, and
right. Yeah.
It can help train people too, and put people back in the workforce that are looking for jobs too, that are difficult to employ in other places. So this can help in multiple ways. So again, thank you very much, and I hope that that this produces something more than just a presentation here. I hope it's the start of something big. So thank
Great.
you.
Well, thank you. We'll spread the word. Thanks a lot, and stay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Diane.
All right. My pleasure. Nice to meet you all. Great to see you, Christina, and thanks, Valdi and Scott for inviting me to do this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
All right. Take
Yeah.
care.
best wishes.
Yeah, you too.